Hey, good morning, everyone. Today, with the Team Axiom, we gather here to discuss a new topic and a new trending technical topic, and that is called GraphQL. Now, before going for GraphQL presentation as well as the demonstrations, what we plan that today we will explain you the entire advantages of GraphQL, what is GraphQL, why GraphQL is used, how the GraphQL can be configured, and then we'll be giving you the demonstration how GraphQL can be used in the application. Now, first of all, let us discuss firstly what is exactly GraphQL is. It's a query language for API. It means we know that nowadays all the applications, instead of using client server architecture where we were writing the server side code for data processing, now we are using API architecture. Means we will be developing the APIs to perform all those server side operations, right? And which will reflect into a database. Means whatever the query user have to process from the client to the end, for all those queries, we will be developing a RESTful APIs or APIs, right? So now advantage of RESTful API is that you can integrate them to the many clients at a time, right? Not only the one dedicated client. So there is no state maintained. It means okay, you can just provide the endpoint URL and the parameters, and that API get called, and you'll get the response. So this is an architecture we will using for developing current web applications. But RESTful API is also having its limitations. That limitations related overloading, sometimes underloading. Every API having its distinguished endpoints, and it creates a problem. It creates an issue with the RESTful APIs. And to overcome that all the issues, just the problem we discuss about the overloading and underloading. At the same time, every API have a distinguished endpoints. GraphQL provides a solution for it. It's a query language for all the APIs and a server side runtime for executing queries using a type system for your defined data. GraphQL is not tied with specific database or the storage engine, and it is backed by your existing code and the data. Now it got a various advantages, like it simplifies API development, strong typing provides safety, GraphQL is fast, it's efficient to fetch data using GraphQL. GraphQL works with complex systems. GraphQL avoids versioning whenever you are updating your APIs. It's easy to scale up your app and with GraphQL. GraphQL lets you use your own code, and many more advantages will be having with the GraphQL. Let us start up presentations of GraphQL firstly. Then after the presentations, we will go for the demonstrations, and then we will have a Q&A sessions where we'll be resolving your all the queries if you have any. So welcome to Team Axiom. Let's start the presentations of the GraphQL.
Hello, thank you so much for handing over the opportunity to me. Today I am here to give a presentation on GraphQL. Hello, today we are here for the GraphQL presentation. The presentation by the Axiom TechGuru Pvt Limited. In this, today's agenda is introduction of GraphQL, what is GraphQL, why to use GraphQL, how GraphQL optimizes APIs, how to get the library for GraphQL, how does GraphQL work, and the advantages of the GraphQL. The first we'll go for the introduction. GraphQL is a query language and runtime for APIs. Also, it provides a more efficient and flexible alternative to traditional RESTful APIs for fetching and manipulating the data. In the traditional REST API, each endpoint represents a specific resource and the client has limited control over the data it receives from the server. The client must multiple the client must make multiple requests to different endpoints to fetch related data, which can lead to overfetching, means receiving more data than needed, or underfetching, means not receiving enough data. GraphQL addresses these issues by allowing client to define precisely what data they need from the server using a single query. Instead of having multiple endpoints, GraphQL has a single endpoint that servers are the entry point of all data requests. Client can request specific fields and the nested data structures within a single query, eliminating overfetching and providing the exact data needed. Then we will go for the what is GraphQL. GraphQL is a kind of query language. QL is the name stand for the query language and server-side execution technology widely used for API that ensure that the client gets the required data. Also, GraphQL optimizes the REST API. The GraphQL allows you to request only the data that you need rather than getting a fixed response with a predetermined set of fields. This can make your client server communication more efficient and reduce the amount of data transferred over the network. This is the small architecture diagram of the GraphQL. These are the clients and the data will go to the GraphQL and GraphQL server will fetch the data and it will go to the database and it will goes the cycle like this on. Data will again go to the JSON payload and it will go again to the client. It's such like a life cycle. Then, why to use GraphQL? There are some minimum points over there. The first point is strongly typed schema. In that, GraphQL API are defined by the schema that describes the available types, queries, and the mutation. This schema acts as a contract between the client and the server, ensuring that only valid requests and the responses are made. The code below shown as example of a GraphQL request, you can make calls and get exact response to your queries. The first, you can see the example over in the curly braces, there is a hero in that name and the height. This is the output of this data, hero, name and the height. The name of the specific person and the height of the specific person. This is the simple example for the strongly typed schema in GraphQL. The second is single endpoint. As mentioned earlier, a GraphQL API typically has a single endpoints, making it simpler to manage compared to multiple endpoints in the REST API. Here is an example of how to define a type of GraphQL. This is the type character in the GraphQL. Name must be in the string, friends string, the home world planet, and the species in the species. This is the example for the single endpoint. And the third one is flexible queries. Client can specify exactly what data they need, including nested relationship by constructing queries. This allows for more efficient data retrieval. And the fourth point is real-time capability. GraphQL supports real-time data updates through subscriptions, enabling clients to receive data in real time whenever it changes on the server. And the fifth point, introspection. GraphQL API are introspective, meaning clients can query the schema itself to discover what types, fields, and the operations are available, simplifying the development process and the tooling. The sixth is versioning. GraphQL provides backward compatible schema evolution, allowing new fields and the types of edit without breaking existing clients. The seventh is aggregating data from the multiple sources. GraphQL can act as an orchestration layer, allowing it to fetching data from multiple sources such like database, third-party APIs, microservices, etc., and present it as a unified API. This feature is beneficial for building complex applications that needed to gather data from the different backends. The eighth point is tooling and the ecosystem. In the GraphQL has a vibrant and growing ecosystem with a wide range of tools, libraries, and the community support. There are various client-side libraries, server, frameworks, and the developer tools available to streamline GraphQL developments. These are the few points. Next, we'll move to the how GraphQL optimizes API. In the REST API, it stands for the Representational State Transfer. It means REST. It is an architecture system that defines a set of constraints to be used for creating web services. REST API is a way of accessing web service in a simple and flexible way without having any processing REST return data in a fixed structure defined by the service. As you can see in the image, it's a simple explanation of in the form of diagrammatic representation. And the next is in GraphQL. The runtime part point to the fact that a GraphQL API runs on a server. In the GraphQL API, we shape our data within a strictly typed schema, telling it how to resolve data when asked for. To GraphQL, whenever data comes from doesn't matter. It could be from a database, microservice, or even an underlying RESTful APIs. It's a simple diagrammatic representation in the GraphQL. The post, the comment, and the author will go to the GraphQL server and it will move to the devices as a single server in a GraphQL API. Then, how to get libraries for the GraphQL? The first one, the JavaScript and the Node.js. For Node.js, you can use the GraphQL package for npm.install it using npm or yarn. These are the two ways of installation in this JavaScript or Node.js. Here is the command on the screen. You can write this command on the CMD. For front-end JavaScript development, you can use Apollo Client or Relay compiler to work with GraphQL. Second, the Python. You can use the GraphQL core package, install it using pip. As you can see in the command, pip install GraphQL core. And the third, Java. For Java, you can use GraphQL Java library. You can add it to your project using Maven or Gradle. In Ruby, you can use GraphQL gem, install it using gem. As you can see in the dialog box, gem install GraphQL. You have to write this code on the CMD for installation of the GraphQL. The C# and the .NET. For C#, you can use the GraphQL.NET library. You can add this to your project using NUGET. For Go, you can use the GraphQL-Go library, install it using GoGet. In PHP, you can use WEBONYX / GraphQL-PHP library. Install it using Composer. And the last one is Elixir. For Elixir, you can use the absinthe package, add it to your project mix.exs file. After, how does GraphQL work? In the GraphQL, every GraphQL service defines a set of types that describes the possible data you can query on that service. That's the schema. Then, when queries and the mutations come in, they are validated and executed against that schema and the processed using resolver. How to complete GraphQL implementation, must have two parts. There is only two parts for the implementation in GraphQL. The first one is schema and the second one is resolver. The first one is in schema, we can we can ask for the data, the request query for the client. Then it will go to the request data in the validating through the schema. Then it will move toward the resolver, asking resolver to process the data, and it will move toward the database, getting the needed data, process them, and it will send back to the resolver. Then it will again send to the client. This cycle will goes on. Now I will tell you a GraphQL operation can either be read or write operation. First, we'll go for the read operation. Read operation known as query. It used to read or fetch values. And second one is write operation. In that, it is known as mutation. It used to write or delete value. In the both cases, the operation is a simple string that a GraphQL server can parse and responds to with specifically formatted data. JSON is usually the popular response format for mobile and web applications. Now, what is the schema? A schema is a collection of GraphQL type. GraphQL uses it to describe the shape of your available data. Schema is one of the key concepts when working with GraphQL API. It defines how the client can request the data and specifies the capability of the API. It is like a contract between the server and the client. What are the resolver? Resolver is a function that generates responses for the GraphQL queries and the mutations by acting as a GraphQL query handler. It defines within the GraphQL schema that a particular query will use the resolver. So it is a responsible for fetching data, processing data, and then transforming the fetched and the processed data into a GraphQL array format. Then the resolver returns the results wrapped by the callable function. These are the advantages of the GraphQL. The first advantage is GraphQL uses a simple JSON-like data structure, making it easy for anyone working with JSON to interpret and use. GraphQL is efficient in data fetching, can fetch information with one single API call, customize request according to the requirements. The GraphQL is useful when migrating from a monolithic application to a microservice architecture. GraphQL does not depend on the version of your schema. No underline, no under and overfetching issues. The performance of GraphQL appear to be faster than REST queries. These are the simple explanation of the GraphQL by Axiom TechGuru. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Good morning, all. I will. We already see the theory part of the GraphQL. Now we go with the practical things. We are. Let me share my screen first. I hope my screen is visible to all of you. Here we are. See the difference between GraphQL and the REST API by using the practical demonstration. So in this application, we are going to perform login, sign up, and see the user list. How many users are sign in our application. So this is by using the REST API, and this is by using the GraphQL. In both application, we are performing the same task. Let's see the flow of the program of this application first. So here we have three things: login, sign up, and user list. First, we will see how many user in our application. So right now, okay, let me start the server first. We are using React JS for this demonstration, and for the database, we are using the MongoDB database. I hope you all are aware with this React. If you don't, then you have to understand what is React first, then you will see this demonstration. Let's go with the demonstration. So here the data fetched from the database, that is there is a two user, that is one Sandeep and second one is demo. And in GraphQL, there is 4 to 5 users in the application. So let's see the flow. First, we already see the user list, then we have to sign up first. At the Gmail and password, sign up. When we sign up, the pop-up show registration is successful. We are going to log in now. Email is Vijay at gmail.com and write the password. Login is successful. After login, we will see our dashboard. We are performing same by using the GraphQL. Let's sign up first. Our email, our password, and when we submit, the registration is successful. Now let's see it is we have registered or not. So yes, we have already we are registered. Now let's log in by entering the email. Now password, and we log in. We have to go in a profile. Then we will say we have login. We already see both applications working same, but difference is this application is by using the REST API and this application by using the GraphQL. Let's see the difference by using the coding, how they are performing the task and fetching the data from the database. Here over the database, this is by using the REST API, and this the database by using the GraphQL. So let's see first by using REST API. In REST API, we know that we have to write different and multiple endpoints to access data from the database. So here our endpoints, first is sign up, second one is login, user details, get all user. For this application we are using three: sign up, login, and the get user, get all the user. So we are using three different endpoints for the accessing the data. If there many users, then the response time from the database will be increased. If we want to access a particular user from the database, but there is many different user, so for searching that user it will require more time. But by using the GraphQL, we can easily access the particular data very quickly. So this is the endpoint for the REST API. Let's go in the front end. So for the login, we had to call the login API. And for the register, we had to call sign up or registered API. Or for the all user, we had to call all user API. For in REST API, we are calling different endpoints. And let's say in a GraphQL, so we already see in a PPT that we had to create a resolver and we had to create a query for accessing the data from the database. So here queries, we have written in the a file that is query.js. Inside we have written a query, and for handling this query we have written function to access the data. For the sign up user or registering user, we have created function for that. And here different functions like login and register are accessing all the data. And here is the query. This query accessing all the data. So here it is a server. We are using only one endpoint. Here it is one endpoint, that is local server GraphQL. In REST API, we are calling different endpoints like register, login. Here we are calling only a one endpoint, that is GraphQL. Let's see how it is working. So here it is a resolver. By using that query, means here is our queries. By using this query, we can access the data by calling the functions like find one, find, create. So by using this function of the database, we can save and create the data inside the database by using resolver. And this resolver is use these queries to access the data. So by using only one endpoint. So say here we can write a particular ID to access particular data, but in the REST API, we had with the REST API will give all the data at a time, and then we had to fetch the particular data. But here we can access a particular data by using a database that we require. So this is the advantage of GraphQL schema over REST API, and when the data become larger, so it is very difficult to access the data in REST API because it will fetch all the data, then find the particular data. So we in GraphQL we need only two main file, that is resolver and the schema. In let's see the client side how the data is accessing, and this function is calling. So query is for accessing data and mutation is for manipulating that data. First we go with the sign up. Inside sign up we are using mutation and calling sign up user. This sign up user inside mutation, see here, sign in user. Inside that we are getting the sign in inputs and passing the sign in user schema, which is declared in the server. And this token is for the authentication of our application for the particular user. Same for sign up user. Let's see the sign up user. Sorry, for the login user. Here we are calling sign in user. So in mutation, sign in user, we are passing the data and accessing the data, creating the new data. By using query, we can access all the data. So here we are accessing the data, like here. We are using use query to performing the fire the query of GraphQL. Inside use query, we are accessing get all user. Inside that we are accessing the first name, last name, and email. Here first name, last name, and email. So by using only one endpoint, here we are defined that GraphQL, and in REST API there is a multiple endpoints. So by the query fire by using the front end, here the query is firing that use query all user, and this all user coming from the query all user, and inside all user query we have written get all user, that is it is a query. So user data will be fetched from the server and present on the front end. So in the server we have call get all user. So here users we have find all the user. So this user written in a schema. So user, here it is a users, users we are finding all the user, and this query fired by the resolver and access the data from the database that it find all the user, and this server will send the data to our front end by using GraphQL and so in the front end. So in this way, we can access the data by using GraphQL and by using REST API. The difference is only if data is become larger, so it is difficult to access. It will overload and it will take time to access the data. And in GraphQL, we can access very quickly because we are using only one endpoint. So this is the demonstration of GraphQL and the over REST API. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you, Swapnil and Sandeep, for wonderful presentations on GraphQL. As we just recently gathered that nowadays the entire applications are converted into the RESTful APIs, but RESTful API development also have limitations. And to overcome that, all the limitations, GraphQL have an advantages over it. So every API have a unique endpoint. At the same time, the problems of underfetching and overfetching, right? And at the same time, inefficient way of data handling, resolve many more issues are with the REST APIs. So to optimize that all the issues, to provide the better way of uh, dealing with APIs or with a single endpoint, that is what GraphQL is. Hope these presentations and the explorations about the GraphQL will help you out to resolve that all the problems related to the RESTful APIs and converting into the application into the GraphQL. If you have any queries related to this, get back to us. As we know that Axiom's team will always eager to go with the new technical topics, explorations, and creating the presentations so that it will help us out all to resolve that all the issues and we can use that all the latest industrial techniques in the application development. Thank you very much, guys, to be with us on the live streaming. Your queries are welcome. You can comment us, you can reach us, and we will meet again on the next live streaming with a new technical topic. Thank you very much. Have a great rest day ahead. Thank you, Team Axiom.
Okay. Thank you, sir.